Welcome to the weekend edition of the Fast Five by Fear and Greed. I'm Michael Thompson, and hello, Sean Aylmer.
Hello, Michael.
Sean, on weekdays, it's all about the Fast Five, the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. On the weekend, though, we still keep it to 5 minutes, obviously, but we're going to pick out the biggest story of the week, the most remarkable story, the sleeper story, which is one that maybe you should keep an eye on, and then our favourite story. So let's jump into it. Do you mind if I go first for the biggest story of the week?
Please do.
This week, Sean, I think the story, and I know you usually do the economy, but I'm doing it this week because I just thought the labour force data on Thursday was quite extraordinary. If it had been in line with expectations, then maybe it wouldn't have been the biggest, but we recorded the strongest jobs growth in a year. And so suddenly the Reserve Bank's obviously paying attention. Employment rose by nearly 76,000 jobs in May. More than 1 million more people are employed now compared to before the pandemic. So it means obviously that the labour market's very tight. That tends to push up wages, which in turn puts more pressure on inflation. Long story short, economists are now tipping that we're going to see more rate rises, more interest rate hikes this year, perhaps another one next month, maybe up to another 4, which sounds pretty horrific from a cost of living perspective, Sean.
Ouch. My biggest story is all about Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe and her comments about the behaviour of men in Parliament House. Now, in the middle of the week, she made some claims against Liberal Senator David Van, which she withdrew. Then on Thursday, Opposition Leader Peter Dutton suspended Senator Van from the party room after further allegations of his behaviour emerged. A former colleague, Amanda Stoker, alleged he groped her 2.5 years ago. He relieved Senator Van, who totally disputes the allegations. He rejects them totally, agreed to leave the party room to minimise damage to the opposition. Senator Thorpe then stood up in Senate and spoke of how she faced sexual comments and had been inappropriately propositioned in corridors and stairwells of Parliament House. She said Senator Van was among a number of men in Parliament who made her feel unsafe in the building. She said, and I quote, "I experienced sexual comments and was inappropriately propositioned by powerful men. One man followed me and cornered me in a stairwell. There are different understandings of what amounts to sexual assault, and what I experienced has been being followed, aggressively propositioned and inappropriately touched." This is an elected official making these claims about men in Parliament House. Very, very big story.
Yeah, it certainly is. Let's move on to most remarkable story, Sean. What was it for you this week?
For me, it was all about the share price of Apple. The company is now worth $2.9 trillion. It's worth 7% of the S&P 500, 2.8% of all global equity markets. Truly remarkable. The one stock, Apple, is worth more than all of the ASX put together. In fact, it's worth more than the value of the whole superannuation industry in Australia. If you add in Microsoft and Alphabet, parent of Google, those 3 stocks, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, their combined value is more than the value of all the residential homes across Australia. Remarkable.
Yeah, it certainly is. For me, the remarkable story this week was our biggest ever jump in population. It took place last year. We found out about it this week. What makes it even more remarkable is that it happened despite a rise in the number of deaths and a drop-off in births. On migration, we had a net gain of 387,700 people. That's huge. And the economic importance of that is it's really significant. You've got a lot of students coming back into the country. Education is one of our largest exports, so it's good news, and it has a flow-on effect then for house prices and putting more pressure on soaring rents, particularly in the inner city areas. Look, overall, I just think those stats, I love a good statistic. And for me, that was pretty remarkable.
Sure was.
All right, sleeper story. What are we going to see more of later on, Sean?
Well, the federal government this week said it will accept 14 of 22 recommendations made in its year-long quality of advice review. This is big news. Not enough people are talking about it. One of the biggest impediments to financial success right now is people aren't getting enough advice, and that's because it's expensive, and about 10,000 advisors have left the industry post-Royal Commission. The review was chaired by Alan's partner, Michelle Levy, came up with a bunch of rules, basically cut the paperwork out so it's not as onerous to be a financial planner. If that's the case, it becomes cheaper. More of us get financial advice. A really big story that we're going to hear a lot more about in coming months and years.
Yeah, it certainly is. Look, a very quick one for me for the favourite story this week. Very, very brief. Artificial intelligence helping to create one last Beatles song. It's not really business related, but it's just crazy, isn't it? It uses a demo tape that has John Lennon's voice. Paul McCartney says AI helped take that voice and get it pure. Don't really know what that means, but it sounds pretty cool. They mix the song and then they're going to release the song later this year, all from just one demo tape that was given to Paul by Yoko Ono 30 years ago. Crazy.
Absolutely crazy. My favourite story, it's watching Donald Trump. it just gets madder and madder. I mean, ahead of his day in court this week, charged with mishandling classified documents, he posted that if elected to the White House again next year, he'd appoint his own real special prosecutor and go after Joe Biden and his crime family. Then he pleaded not guilty to the charges. He called them the most evil and heinous abuse of power in America's history. Trump went on to say that President Joe Biden had engaged in political persecution like something straight out of a fascist or communist nation, and the Department of Justice Special Counsel Jack Smith was deranged. This is a person who, according to polls, will be the president at the end of next year. More bizarre than ever.
Yeah, that is. There we go. 5 minutes and pretty much everything you need to know in the world of business. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
We'll be back on Monday morning with the top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Don't forget to hit follow on the podcast. Join us online as well on Instagram and LinkedIn, Twitter and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and this is the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed.